young Garvita Gulhati. I'm so glad we're having this conversation on the road less traveled. I feel you've been so much a part of really putting the early ideation around this series. And our idea for this was to be able to get interesting stories told, but also to break down the notions of what regular paths to success are, of risk aversion, how one can do things differently. There's not necessarily an age to make a choice. And I feel, and the reason why I'm so happy to have you on this series and a conversation with you is, one, of course, I've enjoyed working with you, but also you've been so inspiring in everything that you've done so far. And I feel your story is an important one to be told. So thank you, Garvita.
I was just saying thank you for having me. I remember when you shared the idea of doing this series, I was very excited to hear all the people you would bring on, and I was pretty surprised when you asked me. So this is pretty exciting, and thank you so much for having me.
Garvita, I want to start with the basic first question I ask everybody on this when I have these conversations, because the answers are so varied, right? And this is the point of when you made that decision. For all our listeners, you're 21 years old. That's terribly young. At 21, I always tell people in jest, I think I just learned to string a few sentences together, never mind making life-changing decisions. But what made Garvita at 17, 18, make this decision to follow the purpose that she felt had resonated so much with her and set up an organization? And I'd like to hear from that point when you identified that purpose and then took it forward.
Yes. So I think, Sandhya, the first change-making experience that I ever had actually was when I was 13 years old. And I remember we were all, like, the family was together for Diwali, and, everyone was going down to burst crackers. And I think that year I had read a lot of things, or I just come across a lot of information which talked about the harmful effects, not only that firecrackers have to, or older people, or to children, or to animals, but of course also to the environment. And I kind of took a stand that year saying that I'm not going to burst any crackers, and whoever wants to stay up with me can stay up with me. Rest, all of you can, go down. And I was alone at home for the whole weekend because everyone was down bursting crackers, though I had my food to accompany me. But, you still kind of fighting your own silent battle. And that, I think, was the real start for me as a change maker. And it actually took me 5 years of that silent battle to get my entire family to stay up, but I guess it was worth it. And then, jumping forward to when I was 15 years old, I was reading about, farmers taking their lives because of the lack of access to water, and women and girls walking miles just to get, a little bit of water that we got without even moving a finger. And I really wanted to do something about it because it was something that I was even seeing. I used to live in the outskirts of Bangalore that time, so I could actually see, these women walking and, getting water, carrying pails of water, and I would be too lazy to just go down the stairs and get a bottle of water to drink. And so it was the irony and the irrational usage, the consumption, and the unfair distribution was all really getting to me. And I didn't know what to do because, again, I was just 15. I didn't even know where to start. It was just something that I wanted to do something about. And that's when I came across this piece of information that said 14 million liters of water is wasted every year simply in the water that we leave behind in glasses at restaurants. And
wow.
I think that was a moving number for me. And the triviality of that number is something that just made me want to kind of go out there and do something about it. And I realized that this is actually a tangible place where I could make a difference, where I could, possibly go talk to these people people and ask them to make a change. Of course, I was kind of wrong because none of these, folks wanted to take advice from a 15-year-old or any of my friends either who had managed to gather. My teachers were constantly telling me to focus on my studies because I was in high school, and that's when you end up going for your college and you need to prepare for your entrances. I used to go to Fiji for coaching, and the teachers there actually called my parents and they said, oh, she's really smart, if she studies, she can definitely get into a good college, and once she goes there, she can do whatever she wants. And my reaction to that was really, instantaneously you kind of don't want to say anything, but later when I thought to myself, I realized that, what, problems on this planet are not going to wait for you to finish studying, for you to kind of get your degree, start working, settle down your life. They're going to keep growing. So we can't, stop. If the world never stopped itself for the work that for what we wanted to do. So why should we, stop ourselves from saving it just because of these list of things that we need to do in life? And so that's what kind of pushed me to want to keep working on it. And actually a lot of my friends, even, some were supportive, but most of them, would say things like, why are you wasting your time with YWaste? And so that's when I started YWaste. And kind of, what are you getting out of it? I remember a restaurant manager who I was speaking to, sharing some ideas around saving water. He actually came and asked me, so what motivates you to do this? Why aren't you, studying? Isn't that what you're supposed to be doing? And I said, well, no, there's no one else to tell you how to save water. So I need to come out and do it because I have realized this problem and I have realized that there is a possible solution to it. And so I think that was the starting point for me.
And that's so inspiring. While I know this, Garvita, just hearing you say that I always find amazing because I still feel I haven't found my purpose yet. So it's really admirable that you found your purpose and then decided to do something about that. I want to keep with that chain of thought, Garvita, given our conversation is more about entrepreneurship and being entrepreneurial. So young Garvita finds her purpose, wants to do something about it. I want to know about the early days of setting up YWaste, setting up an organization. I'd love for you to talk about that.
So I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, to be very honest. I just knew that I wanted to kind of I'd come up with these solutions that, managers and restaurateurs can use. And they were simple things like, telling the managers to ask the customers to save water, you ask the customers how much water they want. Do you want more? Do you want less? Let me give you only as much as you need. Asking them to, kind of finish the water in their glasses and a bunch of things like that, keeping water bottles on table. But this next challenge was, okay, you've come up with these ideas. Now, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to go and pitch it? And so I actually went to my environmental education teacher in school, she's also, by the way, an amazing lady. Environmental education is not a subject that's usually taught in schools, but she actually took it upon herself to teach this subject. And she ensured that, students from grade 6 to 12 actually studied it at least for, 40 minutes every week, which I think is a huge reason why a lot of students, at least who come from my school, are extremely environmentally conscious and have created ventures around it. But again, coming back, so I went to her and I asked her, ma'am, what do I do? I have these ideas. So she said, just go walk into a restaurant and talk to the managers. And so I collected a few friends. First few times went alone and then went with a few friends, tried to talk to these managers. So some of them who actually listened to us said, we're sorry, we can't really implement these ideas because we're a hospitality industry. And for us to be asking customers is not something that we can do, because restaurants are actually rated based on the amount of water that is there in their glass. So if the water is like filled to the brim all of the time, they're rated higher. So it's one of the metrics. And so then I actually realized, okay, this is not a problem for us. This is another kind of thing that we can work on and tackle. But that positive mindset came a little later, not that fast. And it was really disheartening because we would have personally visited over like 40 restaurants. Most of the managers just saw us from a distance and said, "Oh, we don't want to talk to teenagers, so please go away." And then there would be a bunch of folks who wouldn't even like look at us. Then there would be some who would actually listen to us patiently, but then they would be like, our hands are tied as well, we can't really do anything. So then I came back, again with 2-3 friends, discussed a little bit more on what we can do. Is there a solution that we can come up with that actually has some kind of a tangible impact, plus is also matching everyone's needs, which is our needs of wanting them to save water, and them being hospitable to their customers, and of course also the customers not complaining, and in short, learning something in return. And that's when I came up with the glass half full idea, which is all about filling the glass only half instead of filling it full. And the key concept behind that was to create a dialogue between the waiters and the customers, so that the customers actually ask, why are you filling my glass only half? They're curious about it. And so then the waiter would explain to them that, and this is like training that we would give them. So the waiter would explain to them that we do this because we want to save water. Today you might take only half a glass of water, and there's someone else somewhere else who actually might get to consume it because you have saved it here today. And so building that kind of a model became very helpful in making the solving the problem just from a singular space to more of a community solving. And I think that was a very, very powerful move. And that's also around the same time when we created, the name YWaste, and we tried to, make it feel more formal. But again, it was just a bunch of school kids trying to make a difference. And then, by the time school ended, everyone who had, kind of worked with me over the 2-3 years of my last 2-3 years of school, kind of, they dropped off. They got into colleges, and everyone went their own ways. And so I was really in a fix at that moment that, what do we do? Because everyone was a very, very core part of it, and we'd become like family and stuff. And so it was like what to do next, because I was left all alone. And that's when, I think that's the year when Cape Town hit day zero. And that's when we were hearing that even that Bangalore was going to be the next city to hit day zero. And that was very shocking to me. And I knew things about this space. I knew what was happening, and I knew there were ways to solve these problems. And I kind of just wanted to be a part of the solution and not one of the people who was just complaining about the problems. And so even I had kind of received really good admission offers from places like Canada and Singapore. And I kind of decided to give up on those, stay back in Bangalore. And I decided to grow YWaste. Maybe it was from scratch, but I thought it would be wonderful to kind of do at least as much as we could as young people, no matter what difference happens. And I believed in the idea, I believed in the concept. Everyone around me was in shock. My parents, who were kind of prepared to see me out of the country, were even more in shock, I think for 2 reasons. My mom was probably happy that I stayed back at home for like 2-3 more years. I'm sure my dad was too. But I think for them it was very shocking, because they were all prepared to kind of see me go away and study. But I decided to stay back. And I think it was one of the best decisions I ever took. It was very risky. I kind of, had to convince, I don't know if it was a lot of convincing, but I kind of also had to tell a lot of my teachers that, I've changed my decision. And they were pretty shocked, because they also kind of were like, oh, we thought we would see you going there. I was like, no, this is what I want to do. And it was something totally unconventional, because no student, I come from NPS, and no student has and we're a very academically driven school. No matter, school was really nice, and they've always, kind of supported you with everything that you do till the time you're balancing it with your academics. And so they were a very academically driven school, and so for them to see someone get into this field immediately after was very surprising. And so it was something completely new. I hadn't seen anyone take this kind of a risk, of just choosing to completely defocus and go, not defocus, but take a path that no one else had taken, like you said, the road less traveled. And so it was exciting, it was new, but it was worth it, and I'm glad I took that decision. I feel like I wavered completely from your question.
Not at all. Everything is part of the story. Like I said, for me, these conversations are never scripted. It's about the honesty of your journey, and so the question is just a trigger. The answer is what you have, and that's the right answer. So what you said was absolutely relevant, Garvita. But I do want to ask you a little bit, for young people wanting to set up their own organization, say they found their purpose, they're inspired by you. What is YWaste registered as, and how many people do you have on your team? That's my first question. And an add-on question is, have there been skill sets you've needed to learn to actually manage and run an organization?
Oh, yes. Okay. So in terms of, so the first question, like, we're registered as a not-for-profit organization, and we are about 8 core team members, and sorry, so 8 core team members, and we have members across the country and even across the globe. Actually, we have like folks who work with us who are from Canada, Dubai, Philippines, Nepal, and a lot of and several other places. So it's very exciting. But this has of course grown over the years. And I'm sorry, what was your second question?
What were the skills you've needed to learn to really manage an organization? You're what, founder, CEO of YWaste? Is that?
We kind of say like chief waterpreneurs. Like waterpreneurs is like a word that we kind of created, and so that's what we kind of like to say that because it's not like an official business. It's more kind of like a group of change makers.
And you've been funded?
So actually, thanks to the work that we've been doing, we've won a lot of grants, from organizations like Change.org and Global Change Makers, and that is kind of what we've been sustaining on. We have almost everyone working on a volunteer basis, including me. So that is another very wonderful vibe of the organization, I feel.
and therefore, right, you've got your purpose in place. People are recognizing the work you've managed to attract some amazing volunteers to be part of this movement, but it still requires organizational management and skills. So that was my question. What did you need to learn, and were there things that you needed to unlearn?
So I don't think there was anything I needed to unlearn, because I'm still so young that everything that I learn is new for me. And so everything that I was doing was completely new. I think one thing that I had to learn very, very much in the beginning was how to learn. So, constantly asking people for help was a big thing that I would never do. Asking and help, not just, to like do physical things, but even to like, if I want to come to you, Sandhya, and I want to say, Sandhya, can you please teach me this particular thing, or can you help me understand this better? I learned how to do that. That was something that I really, really needed to learn because that was something I would never do. And I think as someone who's founded an organization, you kind of wear all of the hats till the time you don't get someone to come and fill that spot, and kind of do it on a full-term basis. So I have learned things like, and I've sat in classes for like social media management, for marketing, for how to grow, how to build empathy in your team, how to kind of, and each and every one of these things from scratch is something that I've had to go and put myself in classrooms. And even though through the process of learning, I kind of realized, there were some of the skills that I had within myself already. I just needed to find them. But there were a lot of things that were completely brand new, and just being open to those ideas was another thing that I needed to learn, that you cannot be in your own cocoon all the time and just feel like you know everything. Oh, another very big thing that I learned throughout while going the journey is slightly more than like logistical things, but it was more like every time I learned something new, I realized that I know nothing. You know, the more that you learn, the more that you realize you don't really know anything at all, and that kind of motivates you to want to know more and want to learn more. And so yeah, it's been totally fun, you know, from kind of even handling funds, what do you know allot, what kind of funds to, how much do you allot for this, is this much sensible, is that not sensible, how do you kind of get people to hear what you want to say. All of these things were something that I had to learn. And another very important thing I've realized, especially as a change maker, which is different from probably what or maybe I would say as a social entrepreneur, which is very different from what business entrepreneurs would do, is kind of your mindset. To have a mindset that is very open, which is all about giving your idea to the world and not keeping it to yourself. So, for example, let's say the glass half full idea, right? It's trademarked under YWaste, but there have been so many organizations, including like governments, foundations, who have who have kind of taken up this in their own format and in their own way, and we kind of and in the journey we kind of realized that it's to own ideas of change, because then there's actually no change happening. And you know, there were instances where people went, this is a very interesting story, but there was an instance where someone went and complained about the fact that our idea got picked up and we weren't credited for it. But you know, I kind of went ahead and said that no, the fact that you know they are pioneering, and they were a really large organization with a lot of outreach and the ability to get it faster to a lot of people. And honestly, to me, the fact that the idea was living a life of its own was the biggest win, because that's what change making is all about. And I think it took me a while to learn that, because of course, you know, when you're running a business, you have your things patented and you have everything to yourself, and you don't want anyone to steal it. You have your intellectual property, etc. But when you're running something that is bringing about a social change, you need to know that this idea, this concept, and this world belongs to the world. And when they accept it, that is actually your biggest win, and that is your biggest success, because that is where you know the real change is happening. So to be able to, you know, get to those things was very special, and I've absolutely loved everything that I've got to learn through the journey. Another big thing that I learned was to be able to communicate with people of all age groups. This is very interesting. I Through like the journey, I got to communicate and meet folks who I never thought I would, you know, including you guys and Ravi and Bill and you know, all of these people who are decades older to me. And so it was very fun to learn how to interact with you all. You guys have so much experience, and you know, you want to learn more from these people, but also at the same time kind of make sure that you don't look silly, and also just be just be yourself. And so for me, and not only people older, but also people younger, and the work that I was doing needed me to communicate with young kids who came from underprivileged backgrounds as well. And so to be able to put myself in their mindset and understand their environment was also another huge learning. And I think there's just every single day is just filled with, you know, more and more things to learn, and I just look forward to it so much.
Garvita, you know, you said many important and significant things there, but I feel the one that resonated most with me, and there's a great deal of maturity in you when you said that. And as a side comment, I don't think age has anything to do with wisdom. But yes, I agree that you've been very lucky to have had all kinds of engagements that have added to your journey. But the point I really took away from what you just said was really the idea is bigger than yourself. and you've got to distance yourself if you really believe in the purpose. So that's really amazing and credible that you were able to recognize that, because no matter what, even if you're doing something for the greater good, most of us there's the natural ego in all of us.
The ownership.
Yeah, the ownership, wanting to be, wanting attribution at some level. So I really respect that. I want to move on to, you're still terribly young. I always say terribly young, but it doesn't have to be a terrible thing. You're still young. And you're very early in your journey as a social entrepreneur. And so I'm not entirely sure this is a fair question, but because you spoke so much about learning, I'm sure there's always room to, change and kind of rejig some ideas. Has there been, and I'm not going to call it failure, but has there been something that you did or some idea that you went ahead with that turned out terribly wrong and you had to change?
Oh yeah, the absolute first thing that we did, Sandhya, of going to restaurants just with the simple concept of asking them to change the way they behave. That was absolutely wrong, because we were jumping into an industry that we didn't know at all, and we were trying to make a difference in a place that we didn't understand anything about at all. So we hadn't empathized with them in any level, which is at any level, which is not understanding what they are trying to do. And so yeah, I think we saw failure one. YWaste saw failure on day one itself, and that is probably why each and everything that we try to do has so much energy, and everything that we do it with so much of love, and we do it with and every time, even the smallest of the successes make us happy. I think it's definitely helped in kind of encouraging us to do better. Another very significant example of this would be, after coming up with the glass half full idea, we were still only able to get it to the few restaurants around us. So the idea was, how do we make it bigger? How do we take it to folks beyond just our community? And so that's when, I wrote a petition with Change.org's help, and that took almost an entire year to kind of bring to fruition, because it became absolutely impossible to reach. So my petition was targeted to the National Restaurants Association of India, that represents 5 lakh restaurants across the country, which is a huge number to get to in one shot. And so it was really, really worth the fight. And that road was kind of filled with failures, because we constantly tried different ways to reach them, and it would just not work. They would not want to, kind of listen to young people trying to give an idea. And so it was constantly trying to find ways to tap into their system. And after trying several things, trying to reach them through several avenues, what really worked was impressing a celebrity chef about the work that we were doing. And he, of course, knew the National Restaurants Association of India, and he called them up and in front of us, and he was like, oh, you need to kind of listen to these young kids. They have some fabulous ideas, and you better, work with them. So that got us a call. But then, to convince them was another task. And so it's not just, I think, and there have been another very recent example, actually, was with the book that we launched. We realized that something that we did wrong with it was probably putting a price on the book, which is something as a social organization we shouldn't have done. Our goal is to kind of get these ideas out to the world, and to just make a difference, and selling your idea is not something that you should do. And so we have come up with a very interesting way to put it out again. But I think these failures kind of have always just been new ways to figure out what can be done better. And failures are worth it, because they teach you so much more than anything else could have taught you. I say this very often, but I think I've learned a lot more through through these trial and error experiences than I could have possibly learned sitting in a classroom, because the real world experience is like no other. You're under the pressure of time, and you're working under the pressure of other people, and for me still much lesser, because what I'm doing is completely social. But there are still business entrepreneurs who have these other kind of deadlines, and so it's very exciting for when something doesn't work, I feel, because it allows me to innovate and come up with a much better way to do it.
And one of the interesting things I took away from what you said was that balance, right? And it's an important point, especially with the social idea. It's not the right thing to monetize it, and yet, how do you scale it? That's that constant struggle, because you do need it out there. So it's interesting that those and challenges that one has to work around. I want to move on, Garvita. I know from our conversations just offline how you've spoken about many people who've inspired you. You've been very lucky, and the people who've inspired you have been very lucky to engage with you, to have really had strong relationships and guidance from some truly inspiring people. I'd like you to, we can't talk about all of them. For this conversation, talk about perhaps one truly well known, inspiring person who inspired you, who guided you, and some maybe a lesser known story of where you found inspiration.
Okay, this is interesting. But I think I would probably, so I'm kind of someone who gets inspired by small things around me, and people around me who just, I think, just hardworking people, smart working people, anyone who is thinking out of the box, anyone who's really going beyond themselves and working selflessly are folks who inspire me a lot. But one person definitely, and I've shared this with you, who really truly inspires me and has been extremely supportive of what I try to do, is Bill Drayton. He's the CEO of Ashoka, and he's also he's called the father of social entrepreneurship, because he coined the term social entrepreneur. And the way that I kind of got associated with Ashoka, and my entire experience of getting to know Bill is something that I probably haven't shared before. So I think I probably share that. So how I got kind of associated with Ashoka. This was about a year and a half after I started YWaste, and I got this email from someone who knew about the work that I was doing, saying there's this Ashoka Youth Venture Program, and I think you should apply for it. And I was in the middle of exams at that point, and me being the NPS student that I was, studying for my tests were more important. So I kind of said, yeah, I'll probably look at that email after the exams, only to open it and see the deadline was the night of the last day of my exams. And so I kind of hurriedly filled it, and because the person who shared it with me was constantly like, you really should do it, make sure you do it on time, kind of a thing. So I was like, okay, this looks like maybe it might be something really interesting, so let me fill it. And I did, and I completely forgot about it after that. And I think about 2 months later, I got an email saying that we've been selected to come on the panel and present. And of course, this was in India. So we went again, had exams that morning. So like the entire Ashoka team remembers me and my friends walking, like me and I took another friend of mine that time, and they all still reminisce both of us walking into the Ashoka office in our white school uniforms, and they still make fun of us about it even now. But we wrote an exam and then went to pitch our idea directly from school. And we were completely frazzled, in a frenzy. We put together some kind of a slide, and we went in, and we began to pitch our idea. And I think and I don't think the presentation that we had created was impressive. I don't think we had achieved much with the concept, but I think what resonated, or what really made us get to what we did, was our passion and our emotion for what we were trying to do. I think by the end of it, both me and my friend who were pitching together, we were pretty much in tears. So that's how much, that's how close we were to wanting to make the change that we did. And I think that's what probably got us and made us Ashoka Youth Venturers. That's been the biggest changing point in my life, being associated with Ashoka, one of the most beautiful communities of social change makers in the world. And now I'm going to just jump to how I got to know Bill. So Bill, he, of course, is the CEO of Ashoka, and he's now going to be speaking to all of us. So there was about 6 of us who got selected to be put on a panel with him. This was a year after my selection, a little more than a year after, year or two, actually 2 years, no, I don't remember, maybe 1 year after I got selected as an Ashoka Youth Venturer. We were about 6 youth venturers from across India were put on a call with Bill, and Bill had come up with this new idea called Lead Young. It's Lead Young, and that was basically just a series of stories that he had put up online, and that series of stories was just all about why starting young makes a difference. And Ashoka had done like this study with LinkedIn where they talk about most of the C-level business leaders are people who started doing things in their teen years. And so that's the idea he was trying to bring in, and he was just getting onto calls with young people and trying to learn their perspectives. And that's another thing I really respect about him, because he was one of the first few people who I think listened to the youth perspective. And I did not see many or other organizations or other, change leaders kind of be doing this. And so that's something that I really truly respect about him. And so I actually had high fever on the day that we were supposed to have the call with him. And I think the call was scheduled for 6 p.m. IST. And I woke up at 5:55, just somehow woke up. Nobody else in my house knew that I had the call, so they wouldn't have even woken me up. And I have woken up at 5:55. It was almost 6. And God bless that I woke up that day, otherwise I would have never spoken to Bill. And I just put on some clothes and I rushed and I had the call with him. And it was just mostly listening to him and sharing our ideas. And he really liked the idea that I had for Lead Young. So I kind of took the effort of, oh, this is another very big thing that I learned. So I was always very shy to approach people to talk about the ideas that I had, or just because like I said, and you also said this, that there's no age for wisdom, but I always felt like, is what I'm saying sensible? Are they going to even listen? Do they already think of this, etc.? But people like Bill and even Ravi, who would kind of listen to my perspectives and then pay heed to it and then discuss further with me. I really respect these folks, because they kind of make you believe that no matter your age, your ideas matter, and what you're trying to say is really interesting. And so that's another big thing that I had to learn was, one, approaching these people, not being afraid to share your ideas, because really the worst that could happen is just that they don't reply and there's nothing going wrong. So just give it your shot. That was something big I learned. So I shared my idea with Bill, and he really liked it. And then cut to 6 months later, I actually implemented the concept that I had to build Lead Young in schools across India, where we were sharing these stories, in class assemblies. Had young kids coming out and reading stories of change makers who had started in their young years, who were basically just like them, but the only difference was that they went out there. The problems that they saw, they chose to make a difference about it. I think all of us see problems around us, and all of us come up with solutions for it, but not everyone really goes out there and implements it. So the idea was to share stories of young people who are actually going out there and making a difference, and telling these other young kids that they're just like you. They also go to school. There's nothing different about them. So if they can do it, so can you. And it was to kind of create that change-making, revolutionary thought process. And so Bill really loved the idea. I think that was around June or July when I had the call with him. cut to January, I went back to my school and I spoke to my principal and I said, I really think we should do this. And I was in college at this point. And so, but I still went back, and she was very kind to allow us to, do it. And so we had this happen. It was successful in my school. And then I went around, I think I took about 3-4 weekends. No, yes, this was 3-4 weekends, because school and college holidays don't clash. So I was able to go while I had holidays and schools were going on. And I actually went to about 30 schools personally across Bangalore. I pitched this idea, got them to, start doing it in their schools. And Bill was very excited to, I think, see the impact. And that's when he thought that, okay, she kind of has cool ideas and she's ready to go out there and do it. And so he began involving me in really interesting projects that Ashoka was doing, including the Ashoka Young Changemakers, which is one of their biggest programs today, which is identifying young people across the globe who are not only making a difference to a certain, to a certain issue, but also inspiring other change makers to do their bit. And he has constantly, I write to him about absolutely anything in the world, and he always has. He's always sharing his ideas, and he's always supporting me. He's constantly, just there to kind of give you reassurance that. I think that's the biggest thing he's given me. He's given me reassurance that all ideas are not successful first in the first shot itself, but it could take time, and you just need to keep working hard. And just the way that he has grown this beautiful community is something that I adore, and I'm just so grateful to know him the way that I do.
What you just told me reminds me of that often used analogy, or what we say, and it's true that if you do what it takes, then the universe will conspire to support your path. And I feel like what you just said was indicative of that. You kept following through, and then you started getting the support you needed. So thanks for sharing that, Garvita. I want to ask you one last, what I call big question, before we move into our rapid fire session. What trait do you think has held you in good stead, Garvita? We all have different aspects of us that holds us and perhaps sees us through journeys more than anything else. What do you think has held, one or two that has held you in good stead?
I think one from the top of my head definitely has to be perseverance. Constantly to not give up. And I have seen a lot of things that haven't worked out. Actually, for me, more things haven't worked out than actually have worked out. But just to not let that bog you down. To know that failures are not the end, but actually, the path to see something new is. But not only talking about perseverance in terms of failures, but also just to get what you want. So something as simple as I remember I met, and I'm using this example because it's relevant, but I met Ravi last year in June in Amsterdam. And of course, I was very lucky to be there. And the shy me that I was, thankfully I wasn't as shy as I used to be anymore. I had the guts to go speak to him, and he kind of shared his email ID, and I wrote to him constantly till I think we reached a point where he was like, I think she's really, really interested and I should give her an opportunity. But just the idea that I'm not going to give up and I'm going to try my hardest trying to convince this person that I really want to do it, and not letting, just because they did not reply the first time, I'm not going to give up. Just because this idea did not work the first time, I'm not going to give up. And I think that's a trait that I really enjoy about myself, because it keeps me on my toes. Earlier, I wouldn't deny, I used to get really disheartened about these things, but I think, of course, over the years, with more experience, you realize that it's not something worth getting disheartened about. You're just trying your best, and often it just works out for the best. And there's so many things that come to you that you never thought you could do. And I often say this. There's a quote that I came up with, but your capabilities lie beyond your capacity to believe in them. And I realized this, after people started pointing out to me that, oh, you can also do this and you can also do that. So that's something that I really like about myself. And the second thing that I really like, and this is something that my mother actually pointed out to me, is that she said, you have this capability of seeing things through to the end, or at least, constantly doing things. And I think that also is a trait of perseverance. But for example, with my dance, I've seen so many of my friends drop out of class, once we got into high school, once they went into college. But I actually kind of saw it through, finished my bachelor's degree. And when I speak to my sir, my guru, today, there were about, I think, 15, no, there was about 10 of us who started together when we were in like second grade. And I was the only one who stayed till the end and completed my bachelor's degree, did my graduation performance. And so to be able to see things through is something that I think is a really great quality that I would have, because that allows you to not jump around and do too many things half-heartedly or not, or in an incomplete manner. But you actually, and it teaches you so much. It teaches you, and it gives you a lot of it's just a lot of learning. So that's why I think, yeah, these two things.
I cannot agree more with you, especially on persistence. I think I think, in fact, that's the biggest differentiator between people who are successful and not. It's about being persistent and getting it done till the end, right? I'm going to jump into some quick, fun questions because, hey, we like to have fun here. Who's an entrepreneur icon? Not necessarily social entrepreneur. Anyone that you find
for me, honestly, it's always been Steve Jobs. And here's why. So there was this quote that I read by Steve Jobs once, and after reading that quote, I went and kind of read more about him and his life and watched all of the movies made on him in the books. But the quote said that I may not know how to play the instruments, but I do know how to play the orchestra. And for me, that was so moving, because I realized that I'm not the best at just one thing. And I'm not exceptional at one thing, but I'm really good at bringing together people who are, good at a lot of different things, and building the right teams. And so I resonated with him on that. And I think the whole idea also of him and his love for calligraphy is something that I relate to, because I love it too, and I enjoy writing as well. And so from there, and then just the fact that when he's built a technological company while just being a creative human being, and which shows so much about the fact that you don't need to know, just those skills. You don't need to have the exact skill set of what you're creating, but you can create anything out of anything, and that actually makes it even more unique from everything else. And we see that today with Apple. So yes, definitely Steve Jobs.
Okay, what does Garvita Gulhati do for fun?
For fun, I love to spend time with my friends, for sure. I love to dance. Dance is, for me, one of the most fun things to do. And yeah, when I just need a break, I pick up a pen, paper, and I do some art.
Lovely. And you turned 21 this year. What did you do, considering it was a lockdown birthday? What did you do, Garvita?
This year, I think I got more Dunzo and Swiggy packages than I have in my life on that one single day. So really, really grateful to everyone around me, including you, for just making it so special. And it was really great, even though I was at home and I couldn't meet any of my friends, but it was just really lovely. Of course, also grateful to my friends for doing as much as they could while we were at home.
Yeah, and there are many, many birthdays to celebrate going ahead. So we won't fuss about this one. Are you addicted to, maybe not addicted, are you watching any shows on Netflix, Amazon Prime? What do you watch?
Not at the moment. Nothing new. Oh yes, I actually so three of my friends and I recently started watching Emily in Paris.
Oh, yes.
On Netflix. So we kind of watch 2 episodes every week. So I'm currently watching that, but nothing new, nothing else new. Usually during the academic year, I don't pick up on new things. It's my summer is my binge time. So when I binge, I kind of binge for hours. At a stretch, I would finish like long shows within 2 days. So that's my binging power. So I don't kind of do it during the college year or anything because
Fair enough. I must say, Emily in Paris was my guilty pleasure, and I binge watched it, and I watched the whole thing start to finish.
Oh,
So
it's such a struggle to be watching it with my friends because we watch like 2 episodes per week, and I just want to binge and finish it. But I'm like holding on to myself, like no, I will enjoy with all of you.
from Emily in Paris to Garvita in India, I want to ask you a slightly serious question, but it's still rapid fire. 5 years from now, what would you like to be doing? Or actually, I kind of know what you'd like to be doing, but where in this journey would you like to be?
Sandhya, I don't know. I really don't. I'm going to be very honest about that for two reasons. One, at least in the past 5 years, I realized that every decision and every plan that I kind of made ended up never working out, and I went in a completely different direction. So now I kind of just do things. I try to do things. I have these ideas, but I don't stick to them because I just love the surprises that are always waiting for me. And that's how I like to see. So sometimes when things that you want don't work out, you always, I feel like I truly believe in that, in the fact that you will always get something that else that is probably that's probably the best thing for you. And so I have kind of given up on planning ahead. Definitely I want to constantly work in the sustainability field. I want to learn more about how businesses work, and I want to learn about more of um, how we can really make economy and ecology work in tandem. And I do hope that 5 years down the line, I'm working with a meaningful organization that is teaching me all of these things. And I don't think I have anything planned beyond that.
So what I'm going to take away from that, Garvita, is that you'd like to continue to take many roads less traveled, right? And on that note, Garvita, I'd like to wish you a life that's always half full. Good luck, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandhya. This was really, really great. And I hope by half full, you mean the optimistic half full.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I wanted to use the word you used. So
thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks to folks like you for giving people like us more opportunities. It's really always a booster, and it's always really motivating to kind of constantly try to take the road less traveled.